to introduce our next speaker, who I really have hair jealousy over. So, Joanne, come on forward, please. Thank you, Joanne Selves. Oh, and one last reminder. We'll get back to these. There's 2 baskets, the scavenger hunt. For the winners of the scavenger hunt, I'll talk about those later. If you've been staring at the baskets, they're up for grabs on that. Joanne, thank you.
I have the very great privilege of introducing Kurt Harnett as our next speaker. It's on. Good. All right. There we go. Kurt is a fundraiser, a business development professional, an acclaimed storyteller, author, broadcaster, promoter, a former shampoo model. There you go. And mentor. He is a 4-time Olympian, 1984, 1988, 1992, and 1996, and a 3-time Olympic medalist, 2 bronze, 1 silver, all of those in track cycling. In 1995, Kurt set the world record in the 200-meter time trial at 9.865 seconds, becoming the first man in history to break the 10-second barrier, a record that he held for 11 years. So any of you who are cyclists can imagine how impossible that may be. He was also a very famous shampoo model in the 90s, where he tried many 2-in-1s, but found Pert Plus to be the best.
That's your answer, Peter.
Kurt was the chef de mission for Team Canada at the 2015 Pan American Games in Toronto, and also at the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, leading Canadian athletes and teams to record-breaking performances. Kurt is a member of the Order of Canada, our second one here this weekend, Canada's Sports Hall of Fame, the Cycling Canada Hall of Fame, and the Canadian Olympic Hall of Fame. Currently, Kurt is the Managing Director at World Bicycle Relief Canada, a global organization that uses the power of bicycles to help people overcome the barrier of distance so that they can access education, healthcare, and economic opportunity so that they may thrive. I have to tell you that about 1 year ago, almost exactly, this weekend, I had the privilege of meeting Kurt when he came to speak to the Collingwood Cycling Club, where I am a member, and I was absolutely blown away by his presentation that day. Here was someone who had poured his time, energy, heart and soul into becoming the best athlete he could be. He followed that by mentoring others after him who had similar ambitions. And then came the best part. He had taken that thing that he was most passionate about, the simple bicycle, and found a way to use it to make the world a better place. I trust that you will be as inspired as I was that day. Please join me in welcoming Kurt Harnett.
Good afternoon, everybody. How was lunch? Lunch was fantastic. I heard the chef here is absolutely fabulous. Peter, the answer is Pert Plus. As Joanne so well put it, that sure, I've tried 2 other 2-in-1s. If you Google Kurt and Pert Plus, you'll understand what you're being sold with regards to that. Tremendous honor, Joanne. Thank you for inviting me to be here. Thank you to the host Rotary Club, to Catherine Hahn, and everybody involved in putting on this fantastic weekend of bringing such like-minded and passionate people about the growth and the potential of communities around the world together to make the difference. I'm always in awe of the people in the room, of Rotarians, and the focus and time and energy that you do have, and had the great chance of sort of reminiscing with Jean Aitchison and her recent investment into the Order of Canada. So congratulations, Jean, on that. Welcome to the club. Sort of it's if you haven't heard Jean's story about how she found out and then the subsequent journey that she had with that, by all means, at an opportunity, just stop by and ask her to expand on it, because it is, I think everybody that does eventually get invested, because I'm sure many of you in the room will eventually be there with the great work that you do. You'll have your own personal story that usually ends up being quite comedic. Mary Jean, I put the great presentation earlier. I hope to only match your passion and your energy towards what you delivered there earlier, but I also suffer from two of the same issues. Number one, you put a microphone in my hand, I could talk to you for hours about something I'm really passionate about. And number two, I need glasses. I'm here to talk to you about the power of bicycles and the impact that the bicycle can have and will have on the communities and the opportunities that it provides. I don't think it's a surprise, as Joanne introduced to you. The bicycle was a big part of my life, and it created opportunities for me that I never thought I would or ever imagined that I could be. So it's natural maybe for me to be a pitch person and to be very passionate about the power of bicycles and the work that we do at World Bicycle Relief. And you may reflect on that and say, well, that's the bicycle, and you know, what does that have to do with me? But I draw you back. Many of you probably know how to ride a bicycle. And from my earliest days, and just reflect back on your earliest days, where you learned to ride the bicycle. And maybe to a point where you took the training wheels off. And when those training wheels came off, how your world all of a sudden opened up. Opportunity became something that you never thought. Access to the neighboring community just down the road or down the dirt road, right, Mary Jean? Like, it just has, and it opened up this world of opportunity in your mind. Many people in many parts of the world don't have that. They don't have that access. And I'm going to start my presentation off by just playing a short video that will help paint the picture as to what I'm talking about and what I will talk about further in my presentation.
70% of the African continent live in the rural setup and have no access to mobility. It is that group of people that we feel have been left behind. We want more bicycles in the hands of the people who so need them, in terms of the three thematic areas, which is health, livelihoods, and education.
These roads are not in good conditions. When I use the bicycle is helping me because I can penetrate through these bad roads.
I think from the very beginning, we knew that bikes were the answer, and if we could bring our industry to bear on this serious, serious problem, we could make a really big difference in communities all over the world.
Most of what the industry produces will be for sport and leisure. That's not to denigrate those activities, but what we need is different. We need a durable, universal mobility tool.
If someone came to me and said, hey, where would you go for the absolute most talented product development engineers in the world? I'd go, well, SRAM, Giant, and Trek.
Trying to get user feedback. You want it to be as broad as possible. What we get from those field riders is pretty much everything. We get reality. It just highlights stuff that you just don't imagine sitting here in Chicago. We've been focused on not just how the bikes are used, but how they're seen, what kind of modifications that they make. And then different riders have different relationships with their bikes as far as maintaining them.
Onge gima nyalo timore kaka gocho. Koro ka mane omiyo nyaka gochi, kicho kanya lose kakia kaka lose. Rima nyalo rieyo, to modong kanya tim.
This bicycle is durable. This bicycle is strong. I don't use a lot of force. I'm moving comfortably to my destination.
Imesaidia sana watoto wenye wanaenda shule. Kuna watoto wenye wajiwezi na wanasoma town huko. Sasa naona wengine wakienda na baisikeli asubuhi. Sasa imesaidia watoto kwenda shule. Watu wa biashara pia imesaidia sana.
The community has access to these bicycles through the shops that we have. And then we are training mechanics to support the bicycles that are in the market. We are giving them a source of income because more bicycles around, they will be able to take care of the bicycles. The energy that Buffalo Bicycles and World Bicycle Relief bring together is necessary to ensure that what we really wake up to do is being done, creating a good bicycle ecosystem in rural areas. The Red Cross has 500,000 community health volunteers. They have over 100 households to see, and when there is an emergency, it's even more than 100 households, and the timeline due to emergency is shorter. With how vast Uganda is, they cover distances of over 10, 15 kilometers. The Buffalo Bicycle needs to be there. We all need to move from one point to the other. Yes, people have walked to school, but it's a challenge. This is something that changes all these children's lives.
The Buffalo Bike, it means a lot to me because it has already helped me a lot. Now when I'm going to distribute, I can use Buffalo. In only 5 hours, I've already finished my work.
My business, it really expanded. I'm an agent of 4 companies, which I can supply perfectly. A businessman is expected to plan for the future. You plan for your own future. You plan for the future of your family. I'm doing it just because of this bicycle.
It's not our job to make our product successful. It's our job to make the people that ride the bike successful.
As I said, I'm passionate about the work that I get to do. Every morning I wake up with a purpose, and every time I watch that video, I get a bit emotional. So I apologize for that. But just trust that everything I'm going to say from here on in comes from the heart. World Bicycle Relief has the word relief in its name. Its origins, as you saw, FK Day, him and his wife, Leah Day, Misbah Day, saw what happened to the devastation in 2004 with the tsunami that devastated Sri Lanka, killing over 500,000 people and displacing 500,000 more. They sat back, or they couldn't sit back idly, and they went to Sri Lanka with the open hearts and open minds as to what they could do, because they couldn't sit idly by and watch what happened. And while they were on the ground there, they quickly found out that the answer to people that were displaced, roads washed out, access to food, water, all of those elements had a very simple solution to it, and that was the bicycle. On the ground there, where they were working with other aid organizations, the response to them was very, very quick. That there are other parts of the world that could use the bicycle to solve for some of the biggest challenges that they were experiencing. That need is that there's over 1 billion people in this world that are affected by what we would term mobility poverty. and that is access to the three core fundamentals. I think that we all as individuals in this room have either to look to provide for ourselves or for our families or for our communities. And that is access to a proper education, access to effective health care, and access to economic opportunity. We quickly transitioned from a relief organization into a solutions organization, recognizing that the barrier of distance can be overcome by the humble bicycle. And our response is, as you saw in the video, a little bit broader than just sending bicycles over to these communities. We understood that the bicycle itself needs to be purpose-built. It needs to be built to live, to thrive in the environment for which it is destined. No disrespect to some of the large retailers that we have in our communities, but a bicycle that you can buy in one of those large retailers here in Canada has no business being in sub-Saharan Africa. It would not survive there more than a month. They're not built for that environment. That's why we do invest in the research and development of the bicycle. I have two bicycles here. One of the originals, about 8 years old, sitting on the stage here, and then in the other room, in the porch, where we had that lovely presentation from Pat and the rest of the team on international development, I have a second bike there. They're 8 years apart, and there's, as much as they'll look the same as they are, there are some significant differences. This bike is a 1-speed bike. The bike in the other room is a 2-speed bike. The bicycle is built in the way. As Pete, did you put the bike up on the stage? As you learned very quickly, the bicycle weighs 24 kilograms, right? Almost 50 pounds for our American friends. The bicycle can carry 100 kilograms on its back. For our American friends, 220 pounds. It is built to survive in this environment, the dust, the rain, the heat, the time and energy that we've spent on building the right saddle, the proper saddle to thrive. I had the opportunity to go over to Zambia in October of 2023. Parked my buffalo bike under a tree. We were visiting a local school. Of 400 kids have these bicycles, and we were visiting this local school, and I parked the bike under this tree, expecting, okay, you know, for the time that we were going to be on this visit, it was in a good, nice, sheltered space. Came out, of course, the sun had moved. I'm blonde. Sometimes things don't necessarily register very well with me. Blonde and concussed, I like to say, Mary Jane. It's kind of a double-edged, challenge that I've had. Sat on my bike, had been sitting out in the 45-degree sun. Kurt's a little bit scarred to this day as a result of jumping on the bike. But the bicycle is built to thrive in these communities. But we do more than that. And again, as you saw in the video, it's not just about bringing these bikes and putting them into those communities. We build this entire ecosystem. We thrive on building this entire ecosystem to ensure the longevity and the opportunity that these bikes can bring to a community for an ongoing term. That is because they can break. Things can go wrong. Chris Ramos, the lead engineer for the Buffalo bike in the video, sort of says, we do it at home ourselves. You have that same relationship. Everybody has a personal relationship that is very unique to themselves with their automobile, with their bicycle, with their washing machine, right? We sometimes are our furnace. Let's talk about our furnace, right? Some of us make sure that somebody shows up every 6 months and does preventative maintenance on our furnace. Others, myself included, let it run to the ground and breaks and have to figure out just buy a new one, right? That does still exist within the communities that we work. People do have personal relationships with them. Let me just go back to that just for a second. But we also, as was said, we train mechanics on the ground. As you saw in that video, the big boxes that were being loaded off the pallets, those boxes are actually, those contain 2 bicycles in them. It's a more effective way to ship them into the countries where we work. And we have warehousing where the bicycles are assembled in those facilities. So we employ people from the communities where we work to assemble the bikes, to distribute the bikes, to oversee the programming in the countries where we work. And we work, our approach is to work very directly with partners and organizations on the ground in the communities where these bikes are distributed. One of the key areas that we do this is by building or creating bicycle supervisory committees. So in Canadian terms, $205 gets a bicycle into a community, into the hands of somebody that can use it, $165 American. We work with those bicycle supervisory committees to make sure and to determine where those bikes probably and could be most effectively used in those 3 key sectors. But also something as simple, if we're going to give that bicycle to a child that goes to school, a young woman, 70%, we endeavor, 70% of our bicycles that we deliver into our communities go to young women and girls. I'll touch on that in a second. But in helping a young woman go to primary school, get her education, the bicycle supervisory committee will say, okay, for that 4-year term, you will get your bicycle, and either that child can keep that bicycle for life and go off on a journey, or they will determine maybe that bicycle needs to come back into the school and be given and put into the hands of another child that could use that bicycle to travel up to 10 kilometers, 6 miles in each direction just to get an education and make it easier for them to do so. Where we work, there's 2 colors on the map. Well, there's 3 colors because there's the dark red and light red. Light red, the red colors are our program countries. The darker red being countries where we work in more definitively, or I think it's the other way around. The black colors are what we call our development or our fundraising countries. Countries where we work as a collective to raise the money to fulfill our mission. As you see on the chart there, there's 7 countries that we work in, a majority of them in sub-Saharan Africa. I don't need to read out the names, you see them there, but we're also in South America, Colombia, a country that I know that many Rotarians are very familiar with. And in fact, I heard some great stories in the international grant or the seminar that I was in that dealt with the international role that Rotary plays. Again, concussions and blonde, I'm allowed to have that. And I find it unique, and I'll talk a little bit about this, the relationship that we actually currently have with Rotary clubs around the world, and our shared mandates, and our shared missions. And that is to positively influence, positively impact communities around the world. And there's no doubt that our neighbors, our backyards, our communities that we live in need support from groups like the Rotary, but that also expands out to a global perspective. As much as we have that need locally, we also, if not multiple times, I think, Mary Jean, I think you talked about this a little bit, is that the world is different now. Some of us that are in the international aid area have witnessed, great tragedy with the U.S.'s decision to suspend U.S. aid, USAID, and the impact, the devastating impact that's having on many of the communities that we all work in these countries. World Bicycle Relief, not immune to that. We ran a program in Malawi called Bicycles for Growth that was USAID supported, and we're still not sure whether that's going to be a continued program for us. But it's mostly felt with the organizations that we work with to help get bicycles into these communities. Those organizations more directly dependent on that aid and the devastation that's going on as a result of that. Not easy to answer the call. Not easy to say, I also know that there's stuff going on in my backyard. How do I reach out further? But I know that this group here, based off of just my experience here for the hours that I've been on the ground, has that open heart and that open mind. I've listed here some of the areas, some of the impacts that have been and relationships that we have with a number of various Rotary clubs and organizations within. And of course, there's the International Fellowship of Cycling to Serve, a group of cyclists from Rotarians from around the world that go out and raise money, not only for World Bicycle Relief, but other organizations. Number of these opportunities, the German, my counterparts in Germany have a strong relationship with the national Rotary group there, and they deliver a number of effective programs on the ground. We get direct grants from Rotary clubs that vary in size and vary in value. And the last bullet point is actually an article on your own site that talks to a gentleman, Kip Nickel from Traverse City, Michigan, who brought a group of Rotarian clubs together to generate some revenue, did it at one of your international grants, and is doing significant work in Malawi to mobilize people on the ground there. That's the front page, this Pedaling Toward Prosperity article. If anybody wants to come and talk to me, find the link, or I'm sure you could find it online yourselves on the site. But with Kip's work, they've delivered over 220 bicycles into Malawi hands to help people thrive in those communities. Let's talk about the impact. What does this bicycle do? For young girls getting an education, going to school, the number that stands out to me, and Mary Jean, you might be able to support this a little bit in the work that you've done, and I apologize for pointing you out, but I was so inspired by your presentation that I can't help. I wish I had your skills, your passion. 66% increase in punctuality. Now, to us and our kids that went to school in Ontario, ourselves even, you're late to school. What is that? Maybe a couple times, a pink slip. You have to clean the chalkboards at the end of the day, right? A little detention and maybe even sweep a floor. Punishment for being late to school in some of these communities where we work is a little more drastic. It involves cleaning out these latrines that the guinea worm lives in. It's cleaning out, the areas of the school. It's not going to class, not getting an education, being told to stay home, or other deterrents, to the point where maybe that child decides, I don't need to, or I'm not going to go to school anymore. And they're late. Why? Because they had to walk 6+ miles, 10 kilometers, just to get to school. And they needed to get to school on time after doing all their chores, especially for a young woman that has considered to be more responsibility at home versus at school. These kids are getting up at 4 in the morning to do their chores, walk to school. You know what happens when you get up that early and you're exhausted from that? Come midday, you're falling asleep at your desk. Another reason for the teacher and the school to be upset with you, for lack of a better word. But not only, and another point that was made, not only that, they're getting to school quicker and safer. Now, the feeling of safety is anecdotal. You can't really measure that. But these girls find it that they get their, we had a favorite quote from one of our students that had received a bike that when we were able to visit back in Zambia in 2023, where she said, I can ride my bike faster than anybody can run. So, bit anecdotal, a bit of, shedding humor on a very significant and tragic situation. The health sector. We talked about the work that we do with the Red Cross in Uganda. help educate people in Uganda with HIV/AIDS, and help tackle cholera, a significant disease that's ravaging Uganda at this time. We put the bicycles into the hands of healthcare workers so that they're able to educate their community better on the diseases that exist and how to prevent them. They get the vaccines into communities. During COVID-19, we were able to pivot, get more bikes into the communities, get healthcare workers into the community, help solve and help get more vaccines into the communities. First and foremost, raise awareness for it. Secondly, back to that slide, you'll see an 88% increase in their reach. Now, these healthcare practitioners are volunteers. They have farms and families and other jobs in their lives. Getting them out there and getting their reach to expand almost by 100% is critical. I don't think I need to explain that any further deeper than it is. I had this opportunity again in Zambia when my visit there. I met a healthcare worker there. Her name was Sipawe. Sipawe is 65 years old. And 4 days a week, she rides over 80 kilometers to visit her clients, her patients. And it's something that she is absolutely proud of. This is her certification, her level of responsibility that she has. But in traveling that, she's got the fulfillment of visiting all of her patients in her community, but she also has a farm that she has to oversee. And 10 children, or grandchildren, and now great-grandchildren that she's taking care of because their parents have been ravaged by HIV/AIDS. And economic opportunity. The bike can carry over 100 kilos. A dairy farmer can get their milk to market to the cooperative twice a day versus once a day, obviously helping minimize spoilage. Farmers can get their product to further markets, expand their market reach, generate more revenue that way, do so more efficiently. We've done a randomized control trial with this company called ID Insight. For those that have done any work in some of these African countries, ID Insight is the gold standard for when you want to get independent affirmation on the data that we get somewhat anecdotally, because sometimes some of the data we get is the user responding back to us. We did this randomized control study of over 1,500 women in Mambwa district of Zambia. And it was a controlled group of women that had bicycles and those that did not. And the most outstanding data point that came back to us was that women saw a 50% increase in their income. 50% over a woman that does not have a bicycle. What do you hear back anecdotally from that? Is a woman now has power, heaven forbid, in the community for which she lives. One woman comes back, a woman that got the bike comes back and she responds, she says, I actually now have a seat at the table making decisions for my family that I never had before. Why? Because she has power. The banking system that exists, which is in Africa or sub-Saharan Africa, is all done through the phone. She's now building credibility with the banking system, with the banks that she deals with, enhancing her profile and her ability to be entrepreneurial, to expand. People like Sipawe healthcare workers, they start to take over more property, build and expand their farms, and to generate more revenue that way because they have more time, because they're given back all that time of the efficiency of the bicycle. Global data points, the impact to date. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year in 2025, of course, relative to the work that we did in 2004 with the tsunami in Sri Lanka. World Bicycle Relief was born in 2005. We've distributed 868,000 bicycles. We're on track, and our objective for 2025 is 1 million 1.1 million in 2026, and we're looking to hockey stick that by scaling with some global partners, even the ministries of education and health in the countries where we work, trying to convince the Ministry of Education in a country where we work, let's pick Zimbabwe, that they should be investing in bicycles for women and girls to go to school. The Ministry of Education should do that. Why? Data is there. A better education female population in a country, GDP is almost double. Natural for you to want to invest in your citizens to help them thrive. We have a multiplier. When we give a bicycle to a young girl, let's keep with that example, who uses that bicycle to go to and from school. When that bike is sitting idly at home, her other family members are allowed to use that bike. We allow that bike to be used as long as its intended purpose is never taken away. So even if a father lives in the house and he decided that he was going to use that bike and the daughter was no longer allowed to go to school, our bicycle supervisory committee would immediately understand that, immediately know that, and change the course of that relationship. But we have this 5 times multiplier, and we do get the data back that says that, yes, they were able to use the bicycle to get health care, to get access to other market products, or actually get some of their own farm products to a market further away. We have data, we hooked GPS trackers up, and again, understanding sub-Saharan Africa, well, quite frankly, I think on my drive up here from Toronto, my phone dropped out a couple of times. So here we are in the Western world, and the technical infrastructure is not that great. Imagine what it's like in some of these communities where we work. But we had tracked a farmer. I have 2 minutes left. I'll wrap this up real fast. We had a farmer. He was doing 105 plus kilometers, or 60 miles a day to get his product to market. Just profound, profound impact. Back to the camera. Sorry for all you online people. Apologize for that. I talked about our impact, where we're going, our trajectory, wanting to grow. It's only through support of people it's not only through support of people like you in the room and the Rotary clubs that we have relationships already. We want to expand that. We want to grow that. I talked about KIP in Traverse City working with a Rotary club in Malawi to get more bikes into those communities. We're looking and always wanting to expand that relationship. There are ways for you to get involved. I think the obvious is directly with your club and finding ways that we can expand our reach and have a greater impact on the ground. May and June of 2025 is our 20th anniversary I talked about, and we run this program we call Pedal to Empower. So for the bike riders in this room, an opportunity to go track your kilometers, where you have a goal of traveling over a million kilometers, tracking 1 million kilometers, and raising $1 million, US dollars, just for the Americans in the room again. 1.4 million Canadian, but we work on a global scale. I'm going to be around in the porch with the bicycles and with an open heart and an open mind to sit and talk and strategize with each and every one of you how we can work towards mobilizing these communities where barrier is at distance to help women, entrepreneurs, and healthcare workers thrive. Thank you for your attention, and I really do look forward to talking to you. Thank you for this opportunity to be here.